Stephen Colbert was supposed to air an interview with a politician, in fact, a Democratic candidate by the name of James Talarico. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard of him. He wasn't able to air that interview on his television show. He had to do so on YouTube instead. He explained, "You know who is not one of my guests tonight? That's Texas State Representative James Talarico. He was supposed to be here, but we were told in no uncertain terms by our network's lawyers who called us directly that we could not have him on the broadcast. Then I was told in some uncertain terms that not only could I not have him on, I could not mention me not having him on. And because my network clearly does not want us to talk about this, let's talk about this." I love that he did that, okay? So he's on CBS. We all know what has happened to CBS in recent months under the leadership of Barry Weiss, of course. But honestly, I think this issue has more to do with the FCC weaponizing a new guidance from Trump against their political opponents. So what do I mean by that? Well, the CBS lawyers were reportedly concerned about the new guidance from Brendan Carr, who is the chair of the FCC under the Trump administration. So he says that late night shows may have to abide by what's known as the equal time rule. Now, long time ago, we had something known as the Fairness Doctrine. And the Fairness Doctrine stipulated that in order to get broadcast licenses, you have to agree to give both sides or all sides equal time on your broadcast. Now, I thought that was a good rule. Trump brought it back to some extent, although he brought back this Frankenstein version of it so he can use it and weaponize it against political opponents. And that appears to be the case here. So the rule says that radio and television broadcast stations that interview a candidate in an election year also have to allow for that candidate's opponent to have equal time. Again, overall, I'm okay with that rule. It just needs to be applied equally. And that doesn't seem to be the case here. So there are exceptions to the rule, and news programs and talk shows like Colbert's have traditionally been considered exempt from it. Brendan Carr is pushing to change that. In January, he wrote a letter where he suggested the exemption should no longer apply to programs he characterized as being motivated by partisan purposes, which is an interesting thing to say because he did exempt a certain type of broadcasting from this rule. And that certain type of broadcasting happens to be talk radio, which also happens to be pretty conservative.
Not pretty conservative, unilaterally conservative.
Very conservative, yeah.
Almost no left wingers on conservative talk radio, but I'm sure it was a coincidence.
So Colbert called Brendan Carr a smug bowling pin and said to him directly, "FCCU, because I think you are motivated by partisan purposes yourself." Now again, that guidance I'd have no problem with if it were applied equally and it wasn't weaponized for political purposes, but it does appear that that's what happened here.
Yeah, so yeah, there are two different issues there. The Fairness Doctrine, I actually don't agree with Anna. I always hated it. And the reason for that is because it actually prevents you from bringing almost anyone on. Because they're like, oh, that race has, technically it has 13 people in it. So you have to interview all 13 people, otherwise you're not allowed to interview anyone. So, and I can go on and on. I get that a lot of the left likes that, but that law has 1,000 unintended consequences, okay? But we're not talking about that here because here, he's like, this is the unfairness doctrine. So conservatives get to talk, but if we think you're on the left, we're all of a sudden gonna bring back this zombie law and only apply it to you guys.
Besides which, isn't the Colbert Show he's a comedian, isn't it supposed to be? I know that he talks about politics, but through the lens of a comedian.
Yeah, I mean, he says talk shows, but then you could interpret that as political talk shows like us, right? Or news talk shows like us. Or you could interpret it more broadly, and they're interpreting it more broadly. Why? Because they hate Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel, and they want them to shut up. And so they're pretending that they want to give a voice to others, which is deeply ironic because they're trying to actually just get them to stop talking.
Now, luckily, the interview is available on the YouTube version of his show, so you can check that out on YouTube, which further bolsters the argument that there are huge benefits to digital media. It's not regulated by the FCC the way broadcast television is. So there you have it.
Yeah, the person who got screwed most by this is Jasmine Crockett. And why is that? Because Talarico is running against Crockett in the primary, which is starting now in Texas. And this is the greatest political ad of all time for Talarico.
100%.
Because the entire country's talking about it. If they'd just done a normal interview, I gotta be honest, probably no one would have noticed, okay? But because of this is a spectacular political ad for him. So, and Crockett's gotta be thinking, why wasn't it me that got banned? Why wasn't it me? Kind of like how everybody on the left was singing that when Don Lemon got arrested. Keeping it real here. This is 2002. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.